All right, hi, hello, fifth graders. How are you all doing? Tonight we're talking about adding fractions with fraction sticks. And this will be on page 131 of your math journal. All right, so looking at page 131, you see that at the top, a whole stick is worth 1. Okay, if we're talking about a stick, and that's what you have that this doohickey at the top here, this rectangle, equals 1. Now, if we break that rectangle into 2 and we draw exactly 1/2, we have a little bit longer alignment down in the middle there, that makes this, if the 1 doesn't change, we still have 1 whole, right? But we've broken it into 2 halves. And then down here, we've broken the 2 halves in half, and we now have quarters, but we're still sticking with 1 rectangle. The 1 hasn't changed. And over here, we have eighths. We've broken the 1 whole into eighths. We've cut the quarters in half. And now we also have sixteenths, which is the eighths are cut in half, but we still have 1 whole. We haven't changed our 1 stick. Okay? So you can use this to do equivalent fractions and to do adding fractions. So look at page 131, letter A, and it says that you have 1/8 equals something 16ths. So let's look at that really quick. Okay, let me change my color. This is 1/8 right here. Okay? So if you look down, how many 16ths are equivalent to that? So we draw a line down, and a little challenging with my finger, but you know, it's not doing too bad. So how many 16ths does that make? All right, well that makes 2/16. Okay, so let's look at letter B on that same page. We have a certain number of eighths, we don't know how many, equals 12/16, we do know how many, equals a certain number of fourths. Okay, let me change the color again. So let me find my 12/16. So I've got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I need to shade in all the way up to that. Oh, one more. Point. Okay. There. All that shades in. 12/16. So how many eighths does that equal? So if we look straight up on this little chart, we would have how many eighths? We would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. Okay. So, whoop, wrong. Gotta get my pen. There we go. And if we're looking at the eighths, it's a little hard to compare since the fourths are not directly above it. But if you realize that this is your 1/2, then this is your 1/4, 1/2 and 3/4. That would be, if we colored in the fourths all the way to that point. How many fourths do we color in? I already gave the answer away. 1, 2, and 3. So that equals 3/4. All right, so go ahead and complete C, D, and E using the fraction sticks, okay? And when you're ready to move on, I'll talk about the next part of the page. Okay, for the next part, we're talking about quarters. And if you're looking at number 2, and you have letter A, we're adding, oops, let me get my pen, 2/4 plus 1/4 equals something. Okay, how many are we going to figure out? So I'm going to use different colors. I'm going to use them in 2 different directions actually to highlight this for you. When you're adding, you can use the stick, and when we start with our 2/4. Okay, so let's go ahead and make diagonal lines. There's 2/4. Okay, I'm going to switch colors. I'm adding 1/4, and I'm going to draw lines in a different direction, because when you're using your pencil, obviously it's all the same color, unless you happen to use colored pencils. which is always a possibility. But if you're not using colored pencils, drawing lines in different shapes or designs would be enough to signify a difference. So you can see that I am adding 2/4 plus 1/4. Well, how many fourths do I end up with? I end up with 3/4 based on 1, 2, and 3/4. Now the next problem has you, letter B, has you adding 16ths. So we have 3/16 plus 9/16 equals something. Okay. Now let me get my different colors and let me do little squirrely cues. Those are my, whoops, Mr. Chanteau went a little bit crazy. Let's erase that. Those are my 3/16. Okay. What about my 9/16? So I'm going to do my diagonal lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's do some lines. So that's where the, and just don't overlap them. Okay? So there's your differences. How many 16ths does that equal? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 3/16 plus 9/16 equals 12/16, and that's how you would use the fraction sticks. Okay, so go ahead and complete letter C on that one, and when you're ready, we can move on to number 3. Okay, now we're doing it with different denominators, okay? Sorry about the bell. All right, so we have 3a. We're talking about 1/2 plus 1/4. Now this gets a little bit more complicated. So let's draw our colors for 1/2. So 1/2 all the way up to that point. Remember, that's half of one of the entire sticks. And let's do my other color for 4ths, and I'll draw straight lines down. Ugh. Apologize for the drawing outside of the lines. Okay. Yes, Mr. Chantal, go back to kindergarten. Okay, so how many fourths do I have? I've got, well, what do I have? Okay, I can't actually talk about it in terms of halves because this is not quite half right here. So I actually have to talk about it in terms of fourths. How many do I have? I have 1, 2, 3. So 1/2 plus 1/4 equals 3/4. You know that 1/2 is the same thing as 2/4. You're just looking at it with the sticks, okay? Now what about the next one where it's 1/2 plus 3/8? What does that equal? Right. Again, 1/2 all the way up to the halfway line, okay? And now we're looking at our eighths. Let's do 3 of them. Oop, I didn't switch colors. 1, woo, come back. 1. So I apologize for all the interruptions. All right, there's 3/8. Okay, so now I can't do this in terms of halves because it's not quite a complete half. I also can't talk about it in terms of fourths because it's not quite a complete fourth. So I'm looking at how many eighths I have altogether. So if I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 in my 1/2 plus 1, 2, 3, that equals, once again, 7/8. Okay? So go ahead and finish C and D on that page. If you get stuck, that's totally fine. We will look at the rest of it in class tomorrow.